So this federated architecture is very important. So it used to be pre-AI that people would just keep factory data local in the factory. So it's only in my four walls. You have to worry about things like data residency requirements, data sovereignty, government boundaries, data crossing international lines. Those concerns, weren't relevant because data stayed in the factory. Unfortunately, AI models, the best ones, the ones that have low hallucination, the ones that have the highest agentic reasoning power, they're naturally cloud-based. And so you have to take data to the cloud in order to use those models. And those models are the ones that are most powerful for solving factory problems. So the way to think about it is you want to keep the data in the same country where the factory is. That's usually the most reliable way. So for example, let's say I have a factory in Europe, or I want a cloud provider, a sovereign cloud, maybe in the EU, maybe it's in Dusseldorf, maybe it's in Brussels, maybe it's in Ireland. And as long as I keep my data in that boundary and I make sure it doesn't leave, then I conform with the same requirements as keeping it resident in the factory itself. Now let's take other examples, maybe in the US in defense. Okay, I don't just need to keep data in the US, I need to make sure that the cloud provider is FedRAMP High certified. So the way Arch addresses this is we provide always a single tenant architecture where for every given customer, there's only one cloud place, an isolated environment the data goes to. Think of it like a secure enclave attached to the factory, the same way that the customer's IT setup would view their own private cloud. And then you pick where you want this cloud data center located based on your compliance requirements. In Europe, maybe you pick the EU. In India, maybe you pick India. In US defense, you pick a GovCloud instance and then separately make sure it has FedRAMP moderate or high to meet all your compliance requirements. And this general strategy of making sure that just by moving to the cloud doesn't mean the data has to cross international boundaries. You can still keep it in the same region and with the same access to the set of authorized people that are needed for your compliance purposes. So Arch, we don't make our own AI models. We use the best that's available. So what we do is we bring those to the factory. We bring the expertise of how to make this model actually provide value in the factory. And what we've seen is over the last year, the different AI providers, so the Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, they're the ones who have really the most advanced models. These organizations are competing very rapidly with each other. And usually within a day, sometimes even hours of a new model coming out from, say, Anthropic, then OpenAI has a similar capability in their model. And then Google comes out with a similar capability in their model. So at Arch, what we do is we have connections to all three, and we keep track of, okay, what is the latest and best model? And then we always pick the most advanced one that is useful for each individual use case. And sometimes there are constraints. So for example, if you're in US defense, you can only use a model that's in a FedRAMP High environment. That might be one generation behind what's available other places, but actually the number of use cases can still be done with that model. So what we do is we have all the models that work. We have the set of minimum requirements per use case. So for example, if I want to do an agentic reasoning use case, I really got to be using Anthropic's models after November, or OpenAI's models after November of 2025, or Google Gemini 3. Those are the ones with enough reasoning capability to follow through an entire chain of thought back to a root cause. If I'm doing a simpler use case, which is still very powerful, of summarize this dashboard into guidance. Pretty much any model since early 2025 can do that task. So by keeping track about the use case level, what capability do I need? And then matching that to my compliance requirements, which might limit which ones you have access to. For example, in US defense, you can no longer use Anthropic. But that's not a problem anymore because both Google and OpenAI have FedRAMP High compatible models with similar capabilities. So now by keeping track of that, Arch makes sure that each factory we work with can leverage a model with enough capabilities for the problem at hand, but while keeping the data secure in the right residency area and the right compliance framework, as well as the best model that they can use given their compliance needs. Yeah, so this is an area where we need to strongly support our customers. Arch works in the defense area. We have customers that, of course, must comply with all the directives that are relevant for their compliance needs. So Arch as a company, we are agnostic to the particular model vendor that needs to be used. We support all three of the major ones. We support the ones from Google, from OpenAI, the ones from Anthropic. Our default choice in commercial areas was Anthropic because it's natively bundled in the AWS environment. That's no longer possible in defense. So we were able to switch our customers over to then immediately use the exact same use case, exact same level of functionality from Google in a FedRAMP High certified environment so that they were able to get continuity of their functionality while being potentially disrupted by this very rapid change in policy. So Arch always make sure that our customers are able to use the most and best available tools given their constraints. And sometimes those constraints are not a given provider, sometimes about where the data needs to live, sometimes about the certification of the environment and the communication. So we take that burden on behalf of our customers to make sure that we can be their partner, allowing them to take advantage of what is possible now with AI in a way that's compliant and conforms with all of their compliance needs.